Hi, welcome back to the People Development Podcast brought to you by Living Water Consulting. Hey, on this podcast, we believe that growing yourself is best achieved when you help to develop the people around you. I'm your host, Harrison Tash, and with me today is a wonderful guest, Christian Boucousis, or Boo, as everyone calls him. He's an Australian former fighter pilot turned high-performance business leader. And after an 11-year career flying frontline fighters in the Royal Australian Air Force, Boo reinvented himself as an entrepreneur, scaling companies and teaching leaders how to apply the fighter pilot mindset to grow their businesses and teams. And on the podcast, we spend the first 8 to 10 minutes really talking about the background of Boo and why he does what he does and how he got there. But then later on in the podcast, for the last 40 minutes, we really dive into the 3 dimensions that you need to change your business. So don't go anywhere after you listen to some of his, just his story of why he does what he does. Don't go anywhere because you're going to learn a ton of very practical tips to implement in your business today. I promise you, it is actually practical today. So I look forward to you listening to this podcast, and we'll see you on the other side.
You don't want to never count yourself out, make it a great one. Just be sure to leave out the doubt. Time to wake up.
Hey, here we are with the promised guest. Christian, welcome to the podcast.
Harrison, thanks for having me. I think we almost podcasted the whole episode before we jumped on this call.
I know. Well, I'm guilty of trying to live your dream vicariously. So I'm constantly going around this house and acting like a fighter pilot anyways. But I watched Top Gun and then I met you and I'm like, okay, this guy, I'm excited for this conversation. So I love introducing you, but tell us a little bit about yourself and your background.
Yeah, I mean, it's not a short story, but like most kids, from the age of 4 or 5, I just dreamt of being a fighter pilot. It was just my thing, and I was kind of weird in that way. Like even through school, and I go to school reunions. When I left school 30 plus years ago, people still remember. Oh, you always wanted to be a fighter pilot, and what's really surprising is they say, I've just got so much respect for that. You did it, and at the time, you just felt like a nerd. But what's really powerful about connecting with something like that as a kid is it conditions you to powering your life with intention. Like, I don't think there was a single moment or ounce of effort that I put into anything that wasn't in service to becoming a fighter pilot.
Wow.
I was a first 8 athlete. At school, I was in the first 6 volleyball team. I ran track, and I deep down hated all of it. It was painful, it was hard, but I knew that was part of the resume, right? You needed to be athletic, and I did 12th grade twice because I got such a bad mark the first time, and I got marginally better, and I needed a B plus the second time, and I learned 3 years ago that I have severe ADHD, so that kind of explained that challenge and aversion of it to academics my whole life. And with this ambition and this dream, it just pushed through all the barriers. And really now I just have this thought track in my mind, which is anytime I have this feeling of I don't want to do it, it's too hard, it's uncomfortable. It's like, that's the ticket. That's the cost of entry to get to the next level. It's always uncomfortable. And then the internal argument there is if you don't do it, then you're going to be uncomfortable because you're going to be disappointed in yourself. So choose the discomfort, Boo. It's your choice. So all through my, so the second year I went through 12th grade, I did all the things that as a jock, I didn't want to do. I did the extras after class with all the kids that struggled at school. I committed to the process. I didn't do any sport in my second year of high school. I just committed to doing the academics. But at the same time, whilst I was at high school, I actually started at the age of 16. I started flying. So at 15, I started flying. And again, that
Mm.
was in service to becoming a fighter pilot. So I paid my own way. I mowed lawns. I worked in a video shop. I worked at my parents' supermarket. I ended up getting a job at a bar when I was 18, and every dollar I earned went into flying hours. And I became a private pilot at the same time. And that was that. If it was aviation, I aced it with academics. I was,
Yeah.
I was always in the 90 percentile of on my academics there, and I loved it. But anything to do with, you know, the anything to do with physics, math, chemistry, or biology, I was like, well, whatever. Um, so again, it's for a lot of people, I think on their journey in life, they put themselves in a box of I'm stupid or I'm this or I'm that. And I had put myself in that box for a long time, but I had the fighter pilot drive, the drive to become a fighter pilot override it. And about 10 years ago in Australia, we have this thing called the Freedom of Information Act, where any information the government has, you're entitled to it if it's personal. So I asked for all of my military records, and it
Mm.
was huge. It was like 2 gigabytes, thousands and thousands of pages. And it made me realize just how scrutinized you are from, and I didn't realize this, but my record started at the age of 12, like when I first went into there. So by the time I got to my interviews to become a fighter pilot, I'd been in that recruitment center 73 times. It was on a
Mm.
walk from school to the train every day, and I'd pop in. Everyone there knew me. And when it came to my assessment, I was like the very bottom of everything. I got the minimum mark for math, the minimum mark for written expression, the minimum mark for spatial awareness. Everything was the minimum. But the recurring theme throughout all of my assessment was, this kid wants it more than anyone else. Like, and
Yeah.
right at the end there, the recruitment officer, we do an officer panel. It's like 4 people that interview you. There's a pilot, there's a like a colonel, there's a psychologist, and some other random person. And the pilot on that board just knew that this kid's going to get there because of this motivation, right? He just won't let himself fail. And that's been a big part of my identity as a human being, is just never quit, just never give up, just keep going, which is a great attribute for a business founder and owner. But it's also, as I find now that I consult more in big enterprise and help people that don't think that way, just how much there is a lost opportunity for humanity to really connect and deliver on potential, rather than give up so easily. Um,
Yeah.
Giving up is really, it's no dream is over until the day you give up on it. I think is a very powerful way of thinking. So I did my 11 years as a fighter pilot. It was very hard for me. It was a 7-day a week effort to be able to do that job. And again, I was probably, of the 4 pilots that went from my pilot's course to fighters, I was probably the fourth. You know what I mean? The lowest of the high achievers. Um, and it was, I just had this ADHD handbrake. That was the reality. That anything to do with academics, that brought my marks down. Anything to do with aviation, I was fine. The flying part was great. So anyway, got through that. Lived in the United Kingdom. I was selected as an exchange pilot, which was pretty cool. I trained all the way up to a mission commander, which meant I could lead up to 100 aircraft on a mission. That in itself
Mm.
it sounds like a mission, but that is a 4-day commitment of effort to be flying for 2 hours with 60 other airplanes in the sky. The most complex thing a human being can do, I'm sure of it, purely because of the dynamics in that environment. A fighter jet maneuvers 5 degrees and it changes the picture for all 80 airplanes in that instant. And that's happening everywhere in 3 dimensions. Add 50 knots of speed, it changes the paradigm. So in this environment, I mean, business owners and everyone talks about chaos, and it's like, you don't live in this isn't chaos. What you're creating is self-induced, well-intentioned chaos. Like, you're trying your best, but you're creating the chaos. Um,
Yeah.
so when I hit 30, I had constant pain as a fighter pilot. I always had a pain in my neck, pain in my bones. It took me 30 minutes to get out of bed in the morning, and I just assumed, because as a fighter pilot, you're pulling a lot of G-force, that and every pilot had pain, right?
Mhm.
Mine became so extreme. I got some tests done, and I was diagnosed with an autoimmune disease, which is a bit like arthritis. So, unfortunately, kind of at the pinnacle of the career, I was a squadron leader, making my way to be a squadron commander, which is the best job in the world. Uh, I was kind of kicked out, basically. They offered me a job to stay in and be a transport pilot, but I was a fighter pilot.
Hey,
Yeah.
if you weren't flying, you didn't want to be there,
Yeah,
huh?
and being a fighter pilot is not being a pilot. It's different. Like it's I don't know. It's just this chariot that flies straight up and straight down, and you're solving complex problems with it all the time. So I didn't really want to do that. I didn't really want to be an airline pilot either. And that's when I made a segue into business and jumped on an airplane, flew to Kabul in Afghanistan, and set up my first business, which was a post-war reconstruction company that really just did anything that everyone thought was too dangerous to do. We hired people and took on the project and got it done, and we did a really good job and grew that company till it was huge. Nearly 6,000 people in 4 years. So that was a journey.
Yeah.
And then that's it. And then 16 years after that, I founded various businesses, and here I am as the CEO and owner of Afterburn, a 30-year-old company that takes fighter pilot mindset, ways of working, and leadership models and applies them in business, which is kind of what my life has been. And now I
Yeah.
just get the benefit to reflect on that and help people understand fighter pilots. I get it. You think we're straight out of the movie Maverick, and that doesn't apply in your business. But I'll tell you something.
Yeah.
If you take the way we think and you take the way we work and you take the way we make decisions and apply it to anything in life, you're going to crush it.
Yeah. Well, after some of our discussions of learning a little bit more about like what it took, I understand if you hired Tom Cruise to come help you with your business, it may not work, but boo, I mean, Christian, right? Like if they hired you, this is essentially what you do is take that mindset that you learned and also the performance side and apply it. And so I don't want to go too much into that, but I want to go into these dynamics of how you do this and like what it means, right? And I just want to give a little preface here. You did write a book about all this, and you put it into the framework that people can use to actually execute it, and of course you help them. But what's the why behind the book? Before we start talking about some of the dynamics of the book.
Yeah, so I wish it was me. It's not me. I'm just an interpreter, right? So my job is to interpret something that works in this world and how powerful it is in another world, which is business. And I've been doing
Yeah,
it for 10 years trying to explain that, and at times done it really well, and at times done it really badly. Humans being humans, and every decision really being framed by perception. The first thing they see when they see us in terms of our marketing is there's Maverick and his bros and his sisters doing fighter part stuff. So my job is how do I take that? It's worked in over 3,000 businesses. It's worked with 2 million people, and make it more accessible. So that's the book. The book is to get the fighter jet off the front cover, take the fighter pilot from being the headline of the story to the supporting cast, and really, exploring nearly 200 case studies around the mindset, methods, and moments fighter pilots use, and how they are used already in probably kind of spot fire manner. So some iterative thinking is used in education, but it doesn't really translate across into business. Mindset is something that is very hot in personal development, but it hasn't really been transitioned into a leadership lens. Uh, the moments that we show up as leaders, we call it people leadership, impact leadership, and leading now, has been leading now is like atomic habits. Leading impact is how to get things done. Leading people is how to use empathy, curiosity, and vulnerability as a leader. But for me, it's the fusion of all of it that makes it work. You overinvest in empathy, you lose the edge of execution. You commit to the
hmm
edge of execution, you lose the empathy and vulnerability of being a good people leader. And we get so lost in the now, being reactive, that we end up in a situation where we're just completely overwhelmed. And thanks to your help and insight, Harrison, what I discovered was this idea of undiagnosed perfectionism in not just leaders. In this, there was a great study a few years ago that was looking at leaders with this undiagnosed um, perfectionism, which affects about 86% of leaders. But when I started to look at that and I saw that in myself as well, I'm like, there's something there. And then you were saying, look, for me, it just feels about control, and how do I let go of control? And then when you look at perfectionism is the root cause of control. Uh,
Yeah.
and then control is the root cause of overwhelm, and overwhelm is the root cause of burnout. And when you learn that, I call it the perfection death spiral. When you start to see this, what flawless leadership does is create the circuit breaker to stop that. And my default is to get lost in the perfection spiral. I'm lucky that I was given an antidote to that, which is the sort of reflective practices we have as fighter pilots to ask ourselves, hey, was the expectation met? If not, why not? And what's one thing I can control tomorrow to fix it? And that
Yeah.
is really the crux of the book and the biggest opportunity for humanity to achieve its full potential.
Yeah. Well, I don't know, I'll let you kind of take the I wanted to say take the wheel here,
Take the
but
stick.
I should say take control, right? What's the proper terminology
Yeah,
here?
take the stick. Yeah.
Take the stick. All right. So let's take the stick. I want to let you take the stick here. And let's go into that because I was really interested when you gave some literature for me to read and give you some feedback on when it came to this. I was looking at that control and that perfectionism, and I'm like, I don't think I'm a perfectionist, but at the end of the day, like you said, there's a link there. So I don't know if you want to go into the trap first, or if you want to head into like the mindset, the
Well,
method, and
there's
the
there's
moments.
two things I want to touch on. First of all, having you read the manuscript is a fighter pilot thing. We call it red teaming. So we
Yeah.
understand that whatever we create, whatever our perception is through our eyes and the product of our biases and our beliefs. So before you do anything as a fighter pilot, before you deliver on a mission, you always red team. So that
Mm,
what's really fascinating was now that I'm into agentization and I'm into Claude code, so I'm building apps. And one of the first apps I built was a day trading, stock trading app. Uh,
yeah.
and as I built the code, Claude started telling me, wow, you're really approaching this like a fighter pilot. You're asking me to red team. You're really clear about direction. It's like, this is really good for me to help you build this code. And I was
Yeah.
like, well, yeah, it's just how we are. And then I said to it, create a simulation that we can run your code against a simulation. It's like, that's a good idea. And it's like, wow, I just found three more things. And it's like, you're really showing me how red teaming is really works. I love this. And it's kind of weird, you start to feel like Claude is real. Um,
Yeah.
and that's
Yeah.
why I kind of feel like the book and with AI and everything, it sets leaders up to win. And then you said you didn't think about perfectionism, and that's the key part of it. Like, perfectionism isn't conscious; it's unconscious. You don't think; it's an internal
Yeah.
driver. It is a whisper in your ear that it's not good enough. You're not
Mhm.
you're not good enough. You're an idiot. Why did you make that mistake? Like, that's internal narrative. So perfectionism and the thesis around it being undiagnosed is because people who think they're perfectionists are rare. They feel like that they're really OCD. They're not perfectionists. It's different. Um,
Yeah.
Perfectionism is a subconscious whisper. It is an internal talk track that makes us feel like we're not good enough, that nothing's ever on time, and that I just need, if I'm in more control of everything, it's going to be better. And then that just effectively overloads your cognitive bandwidth, and you spiral and then seek out more perfection and more control.
Mm.
And at the end of the day, it just ends up, you feel tired, frustrated, um, and you start to give up.
Now now you said something that kinda caught my ear during that, which is, OCD is not perfectionism. So, what's the true differences between the 2?
Well, is OCD is a compulsion, right? So it's a
Mhm.
trigger that is actually it drives a more conscious behavior. So I need to make sure that I need to turn the gas off 4 times before I walk out the door to make sure that I'm not going to leave the gas on when I leave home. It's
Okay.
I need to make sure that all the knives or forks are sit in a very specific way. Uh, but perfectionism would mean you apply that to everything in life, whereas OCD tends to navigate towards specific compulsions. It's
Okay, got it.
not compulsive about everything. Like you can have
Yeah.
OCD, but you can still have a messy bedroom, because in your mind that element of control isn't as important. So perfectionism pervades everything. So perfectionism is the driver of why relationships fail, because you're
Mm.
creating this perfect expectation of the person that you're with, and they're
Yeah.
constantly falling short of that. And then you behave in a way which is, this person is not good enough for me, this person doesn't believe what I believe, rather than allowing yourself the trigger, which is to say, oh, this is just a mismatch of expectation here. That's all this is.
Right.
We're getting lost in the doing here, we're getting lost in the control. We need to, as we say as fighter pilots, wiggle your toes, let go of the stick, sit on your hands, take a breath, and stop trying to over control the airplane. Just listen to it. Where are we trying to go? What are we trying to achieve? And then rebuild the picture. So part of perfectionism is it always benchmarks the impossible expectation, and then we live in life in service to that. How it manifests as well in terms of human behavior is, let's use something like marathon running, because everyone kind of knows what that is, and it would be something like, hey, I'm going to run a marathon, and then the first day you go train, it's like, wow, that's hard. It's too hard. But rather than
Mm.
and we see it in business all the time. It's like, right, here's our annual strategy, and then on Monday they try to do the whole thing in a day. Uh,
Right.
One thing I learned with my ADHD is I learned about the human brain, and why mine is, you know, I don't have any problem with focus and being busy. The problem is turning it off. It's getting out of the busyness. And what I learned about ADHD is humans can't frame time. So we don't understand the difference between a day, a week, a month. All we understand is now or later. So what happens
Mm.
is we end up doing something now, it's too hard, and it goes into the box with 50,000 other things to do later. Whereas fighter pilots, it's like, well, this is what I need to achieve in 6 months, but this is what I need to get there in 6 months. This is what I need to achieve in the next 2 hours today, and the 2 hours tomorrow, and in 2 hours the next day, and 2 hours the next day. Like
Yeah.
we define a quarter all the way down to the daily mission. It's all connected.
Yeah, well, I love that. I mean, you work with a lot of businesses as well as I do, and like when you think about taking that big vision and breaking it down, it's very hard for a lot of people. And it's taking the strategy and making it tactical, and that can be, that's a challenge in itself, especially when you talk about breaking it down to the week or the day. That that is like something I don't think, if you were to ask me, I would say like 80% of people really struggle with that, right?
Oh yeah.
Like, how do we take it and make it biteable, if you will?
And that's why we built the three layers of leadership, the three leadership moments, because vision speaks to people leadership, it's storytelling. Mission speaks
Yeah.
to the impact layer, it should define all the activity you do in the business, and values drive decision making. So,
Yeah.
whereas most companies lump that all together and they don't know how to use it, like they don't connect people to their vision daily. You know, they don't
Mhm.
they don't reconnect them with the story of the company, and you're the character in the story, and this is the current chapter that
Yeah.
we're in, and you've got to achieve this particular mission in the chapter so we can write the book. Uh, but vision doesn't do execution. So execution is, here's the mission, right, and here's your mission, and when you deliver this, when you get to this point at this time, then the rest of us are going to be there as well, and collectively we're going to achieve the mission objective. And then values is like, oh my gosh, something's not going to plan here. Uh, how do I make a decision? Well, the decision's aligned to your values, and it might be, I can heavily discount to get this client, but I value the relationship more than the money, and then I need to invest more time to explain to them the value of what we're going to do and why this relationship is so important. We just get into discounting, right? We just get into the numbers. So
Yeah.
so there's always humans, and with the digital world and the fact that we're always on it, and it anchors the wrong structures of the brain. Like it anchors the task positive network. It's always the doing, not the reflecting and the creative side. So the part of humanity that it steals is the human connection, because you just don't have the time.
Right.
You don't have the patience. You're so busy that you've lost the ability to go into the more the higher level functions of mental process. You don't connect the spiritual side to what you do. You don't connect how people feel about what they do. It just becomes a grind.
That's an interesting thing because I was thinking about this not too long ago. Actually, I was talking to my wife about this. Is like, but this happened with food first. It's like fast food, then created and rewired the way we eat, the way we think, right? Because it's like we can get it on demand. Whereas, you had to grow it. You had to, right? Like there was a learning curve to like how you grow food, and now it was just like there. And now we're in the knowledge is the same thing now. Now it's like you can find something out very, very quickly, and you don't have to learn it as you once did. And it's like what happened to us with food is now going to happen to us with knowledge. And it's like, how do we help um, you know, shore that up in a way to where you almost preventatively keep yourself from that. But a whole other topic and a whole other podcast. But
No, but it's a
I
good
want to
point.
go
It's an
into
important point to make because we learned with an abundance of food, we get obesity, right? And the same with information. Too much information, you get infobesity. And
yeah,
it's not good for you. It makes you sick, and it doesn't manifest as fat cells in the body. It manifests as a rewiring of the brain to be
yeah,
less human, basically. Um, and even I found another great study because we do a lot of work around decision making. Decision making is the moment that the idea meets reality or the intention meets reality. Without the decision, we never quite get to what's real, which is why we defer
mm,
decisions because within our biases, there's a sense of achievement in creating a plan. Like just creating the plan makes you feel good. The doing
right,
part
yeah,
is the next step. And a study into human decision making. Some people say that we make 25,000 decisions a day. It's hard to find research on that, but there's one study that says just on the topic of food, the average human makes 220 decisions, food related decisions a day. Um, so a big part of our practice with intentionality and execution is because fighter pilots think in seconds and minutes and businesses think in quarters and months, you
yeah.
unlock the potential to make tens of thousands of reversible micro decisions rather than these big personal terrifying big decisions. And that's
Mm.
really important as well because small decisions with minimum consequence you can talk about, they don't feel personal, but big decisions do, and big decisions feel like failure rather than small decisions which are just part of the journey.
Yeah. Yeah, that's interesting. So wait, reframe that in a different way to say like what's your tip in that then? Like what's the if the ideal way of working in those micro decisions versus those big macro decisions? Like what's your tip in that then?
Yeah, it's just intentionality around achievement. So instead of approaching each day with a to-do list mindset, it's to approach the day with an achieve mindset. So instead of saying this is the 20 things I need to do today, frame it up as this is the 3 things I need to achieve. Something
Mm.
simple like, to do, I've got to go to the shops today. Reframe that as, ooh, I want to make a really nice dinner, right? And when
Oh,
you pigeonhole achievement, when you start getting busy during the day, it's like, oh, actually, what I'm about to do isn't going to achieve what I set out to achieve, and it helps you refocus. Um, this the more unfocused we are, the more brain energy we use. We basically every time we switch attention, we bring a, detritus from the previous situation. So we carry our baggage with each decision. So by the end of the day, if you've made unintentional, it's different with intentional decisions. If you've made unintentional, unfocused decisions, you're exhausted and all the baggage
yeah.
carries you through. Another great study into if you had a parole hearing in the afternoon, you're 69% more likely to have parole denied than if you had it in the morning because the people hearing the parole on the parole board get less and less interested as they go and more fatigued and they carry the
I
baggage.
could believe that, right?
Yeah.
I could totally believe that. Yeah.
Yeah. So for me, when I
Um
had my,
yeah.
I caught long COVID, unfortunately, for about 3 years, and one of the things I got from long COVID was atrial fibrillation. So I had to go
Okay.
and get my heart operated on a couple of times. And I just made sure that when I spoke to the doctor, I'm the first one, 7 a.m., that has this
Yeah.
procedure.
Yeah. Let's get them on the first run, huh?
Yeah, I know. It's like I can do it
uh,
Tuesday afternoon. I'm like, nope, I'm going to wait for a week. I want 7 a.m.
y- that's funny, and also very important to realize as a business owner or leader that timing matters, right? Like that's a great point. I want to just bring something out and shine light on it that you said, that reframing it so it's not a to do, it's an achievement. I think this is extremely important. I appreciate your wisdom on this because I think it's easy to say we have to do this for the customer, whereas you could say, we get to bring more value to the customer. There's an achievement there versus a to do. And I think that's an extremely important thing that starts in the mind and it can actually help you act it out. So I appreciate you bringing that up. I want you to go into some of the three dimensions as a little bit of educational for the audience here. And also for me, I'd love to understand a little bit more about these three dimensions of what helps someone go from overwhelmed to being an impactful leader, right? Maybe you can frame it a little differently, but I'd love to go into that.
Yeah, we have this saying in the Air Force: big hands, small map. So whenever you start anything, you've got to have that big picture. So your hand is the same size as Australia. Like that's big. That's called big picture. Yeah.
Yeah.
And then you start to strip. You start to dial in. Yeah. And then the other concept we have when we fly missions is we always start at the target and work backwards. Business does the opposite. It's like, this is what we do. This is where we're going. What am I going to do today? We start with where we are to where we're going. So the first shift is mindset, which is always start with the end in mind, and then work out the details. So uh, when we talk about mindset, I've done a lot of work on mindset. I just find it fascinating, and I probably got excited by it when I read Carol Dweck's book Mindset 20 years ago. But when I read the book, my dad gave it to me and he goes, "This is amazing." Chris, as my parents call me, they're like, "You've got to read this book." It's like, and I read the whole book and I'm like, this is just what we do as fighter pilots. Like, there's nothing in this. Yeah, this is like common sense. What are you talking about? Um,
Yeah.
and then I realized it's common sense for a fighter pilot, but it's certainly not common sense for anyone else because we're really unique, and it's how you frame growth versus fixed. So when we talk about mindset, we want to create this growth minded leader. And when I talk about leader, I just mean a person, right? So if you have a personal goal, the way I define leadership is you're taking something into the unknown future. You're leading yourself if it's personal, and then if you have a team, you're leading a team there. So leadership is a journey into the unknown and growing along the
Mm.
way. So the first thing is intention. So start with intention. Now, there's a lot of people that say be an intentional leader, and that's part of the story. The intention is the goodwill and it's the adventure, but we've got to translate intention into destination, a fixed point in time and space where we arrive somewhere. And I tell a story in my keynote, who flew into the event today. When you got on the airplane, the captain didn't say, "Welcome aboard, ladies and gentlemen. Our goal is to get to Orlando." Imagine if the captain had a goal, right? Subconsciously, we know as humans that goals are something nice to achieve. They're not essential. So for me,
Yeah.
I had intention to become a fighter pilot, but I also had a destination, which was to be in that cockpit. Like it was tangible. I knew I could manifest it and visualize it, right? So the first thing we have with fighter pilot mindset is set the intention and define it as destination. Then connect with the realities. And the reality is, no matter what you do in life, the every second is the new future, and every second is an opportunity to redefine the future. So we've got to
Mm.
be honest about our reality. So becoming a fighter pilot, my reality was I was not good at academics. What did I have to? The next step is to embrace curiosity, and the curiosity is, why is there a gap between the intention and reality? And for me, it was academics, and I wasn't good at it. So the action was, and the most important thing for how I define mindset is you've got to do something. Mindset doesn't gel. You can't just be intentional and have positive affirmations. Something has to happen in the real world for you to be convinced that this thing is a good idea. So the
Mm.
action is go and do the extras after school. right? And then when you do an exam and you get a B plus instead of a C, it's happening. Like you created that, right? Now I didn't have any consciousness of that at the time. I didn't have any of these thoughts. I was just like, damn, I want to be a fighter pilot, and I just did what I needed
Right.
to do. Um, and then and that's mindset, intention measured against reality, curiosity to explore the gap and do something about it. Not something big, something small. I want to run a marathon. Damn, that was really hard today. Okay, tomorrow dial it back 30%. Go for a walk.
Right.
Like just do something
Yeah.
different. Don't just make it harder. Um, and then the method is the actual step-by-step process that you follow.
And this is the second M, method then.
Correct. Yeah.
So from mindset to now method. Got it.
Correct. And when we talk about method, what we're really saying is don't leave a growth mindset to chance. Don't make it something that you have to think about. Follow this method, and the byproduct is growth. You can't not grow. And the
Yeah.
method is an 8-step process. It starts with a plan. So when we talk about plan, what we're really saying is just think before you act. Just spend some time thinking. And if there's
Yeah.
other people involved, spend the time thinking with them as well. Do the create together. And then red team it, like I said earlier. When you've got an idea and before you go do something, make sure someone checks it, that they're not invested in the result, they're just invested in you. And they're going to come with a completely fresh set of eyes and a different perspective. The second step is brief. And when we say brief, we mean the minimum number of words humanly possible to help someone understand an expectation. So when we talk about briefing, all we're really saying is, hey, we created this thing together. Now I'm going to ask you a whole bunch of questions to make sure you understand. There's no meetings.
Yeah.
The third step is execution, and that's where we talk about the missionization. So now that we plan something, now that we all understand what we're going to do, let's clear the calendar for 3 hours and just do it. And then when it's done, let's connect for 15 or 20 minutes and debrief. And when we debrief, we're saying the debrief pushes us into the next 4 steps, which is called ORCA, and it's objective, result, cause, action. So we basically.
I want to pause just for a second and say the brief and debrief. I think that's missing in so many organizations, right?
And so is the planning.
Yeah, because I see the planning. I wouldn't say all the time, but I see it more than I see a brief or a debrief. And like you said, these are like really important pieces. But I just want to point out that like there's a time to where you say it in a way and you act curious and ask the questions, and then after you've done it, like to actually say like, what have we learned? What are we going to do next? Right? I really love that. I think the audience just slow down for a second and say, those are super important aspects of what you just mentioned, those 4 steps.
And that's,
So
yeah.
Recap those first 4 real quick.
So plan. So stop and think and co-create, create a collective consciousness. Brief, make sure everyone understands. So it's not what you say, it's what's understood. Execute is block out the time to just focus on the work. And if you're a student of deep flow, it's pretty well researched that 2 to 3 hours of focused work equals a full day of unfocused work. And then, so what does that do? Well, that frees up the time now to debrief and plan better. So all of this, I don't have time to plan, I don't have time to brief, I don't have time to debrief, is because you're so busy doing stuff all the time. So that's the 4 steps. And the debrief is quite important because that intention model I spoke about, mindset, it's really the debrief that's the mindset part. The first 4 steps are the execution part. The second 4 steps is the mindset piece. So we say to ourselves, what did we collectively agree of the objective? So ORCA is the mnemonic, the killer whale, objective, result, cause, action. So we say, what did we set out to achieve, the objective? What was the result? So what was that reality? What really happened? C is the cause or curiosity. Why did it happen? And A is what are we going to put into our achieve list tomorrow? What's one thing we're going to change? And I would challenge you that the planning that you see in business is mostly the creation of to-do lists, lining up with lining up with a story. It's not really missionized. It's just, we're still not doing what we're meant to be doing well. So let's just keep talking about doing all the time. And it's not working well because we didn't plan it well. So we're like elementary school football where everyone's following the ball. rather than everyone sitting and playing their role and playing their position. Uh,
Yeah.
and that becomes like an infinite loop of connection. So the debrief feeds back into the plan, and you end up with this real nice flow that delivers the mindset. Then the third M is the moments that we apply this mindset and this methodology. And we've probably touched on it earlier in the podcast. So we've got to apply it at the human layer. So when we talk about the human layer, we don't say what's your objective as a human. Like that's not how humans work. We're
Yeah.
talking about feelings and personal goals, right? So we're saying, hey, how's the family? What do you guys hope to achieve by the end of the year? Want a vacation? Want to buy a house? Awesome. Like, well, let's work together to help you achieve those personal dreams. You felt you were a little bit off this week. I just sensed something wasn't quite right. How's everything going? My wife's sick. My one of my kids has a terminal illness. Cool. All
Hmm.
right. Now we can create environment where we can work with you on that. Um, but so often we just look at the results and we just get frustrated at the people. The second layer, impact layer, I call that the trust and credibility layer. And when we talk about trust, typically trust is not, it's quite rare that someone intentionally breaches trust, right? It requires this thought that I really want to mess this person around. A loss of trust is kind of like happens by accident. It's the incidental byproduct of having unaligned expectation. So the impact layer is creating that, right? It's anchoring expectation, and
Hmm.
expectation today, expectation by Friday, expectation by next Friday, expectation by month, expectation by quarter, expectation by year. The bit that gets lost is the daily expectation setting. That just doesn't exist. It's always reactive chaos reflecting on why we're not there yet, what's going on, give me an update, give me, you know, I've never once in a fighter pilot career sat down in a meeting for an update. Like it just didn't happen. Like we knew what we needed to know to get the job done, and we always had meetings to do something tomorrow. Every collaboration was forward facing, not looking backwards. So if you think about it, debrief is reflecting intentionally. In 15 minutes, you can have a conversation that currently takes you an hour, and the product of it is always, what are we going to do tomorrow? That doesn't
Yeah.
exist. That as a practice doesn't exist in any other culture on earth other than fighter pilots. And we know it. We've worked in the NFL. The two teams that went all in with us and changed their reviews to debrief both won the Super Bowl. New York Giants in 2012,
Mm.
Broncos in 2015. We've worked with Fannie Mae, Google, Dell, Michael Jordan, Air Jordan. Like, it doesn't exist. And that is the opportunity to really grow as a leader. And high growth leaders run high growth teams that drive high growth companies. You don't need charisma. You don't need to be a genius. You just need to be
Mm.
to a process that gives you 1% more each and every day.
No, I love that, and I completely agree. I mean, if I look back even on my own journey, I think the times that I got stuck the most is when I got stuck in this, I got to achieve this big goal, and I didn't have the little steps that got me there. And a lot of the intel from teams that we worked with over the years is the same thing. They might have a vision for the future, but to break it down is just, it can be really hard. It can feel like 1,000 steps that you have to go up to achieve something, when really you just need to get to the next landing, which is like 10 steps up, right?
Yeah,
And I think,
absolutely.
yeah,
Yeah, you don't climb a ladder by starting at the last step, right? Yeah, and it's even with Afterburner, my vision is to create a movement of flawless leaders and to be able to educate and grow 2 million leaders in the next 5 years. Like, I'm not getting stressed about that now because it might take 10. I don't know. Like, I
right,
don't control the world, but that's the vision, and we will invest 100% in what we can control to fulfill that vision. But I know that there's just a bunch of stuff. It's just a guess. It's just an aspiration. Um, and if it takes me 10 years, I've got 10 years. Uh, so,
yeah,
I think we get so wedded to these big aspirations and goals. Like, I built a hotel, right? 17-story hotel, and it needed to be done by a certain date. and everyone is stressed about that. Every single day drives massive stress around this date. And I saw the stress and I'm like, let's just decompress this a little bit. Let's start to debrief every day. Let's get rid of the Gantt charts. Let's just focus on reality. And if we improve
Yeah.
reality each day, the Gantt chart will look after itself. And we finish 2 months early. Right. So, it's very there's a lot of complexity in neural pathways, in consciousness and unconsciousness between vision actually being delivered. Like there is a lot that goes on there. And that's
Yeah.
why, 60 years ago, when Colonel Boyd created this idea of the OODA loop, that's what he solved. He said iterative thinking and taking something and making it a little bit better tomorrow and investing in observation and planning before execution is the way to go. And it improved performance of fighter pilots by nearly 400%. Uh,
Yeah.
and I explore that in the book. Like there's genuine hard coded life or death statistics that show you the difference between us operating without iterative thinking and growth mindset. And then when we started operating with iterative thinking and growth mindset, it's profound. And we see it in business all the time. We help VMware grow into a $1 billion behemoth. We helped. I helped this. My most proud moment is working with a tiny little $4 million company in Australia that was a retailer of craft beer, and they had a 400% growth in a year because they committed to debriefing as a team every day. There's only 5 of them. It blew them away. Everything improved.
Mm.
Their social media, their community, their logistics. And to see them go from this small warehouse to a massive warehouse down the road, it like it's you know it, you don't have to be a genius to understand if you reflect and improve something every day that you're going to be better by the end of the year. The challenge is doing it. It,
Yeah.
it's
Yeah.
getting out of the weeds and getting out of the
But like you said, the reflection, the debriefs part is not just reflection, but it's also what do we do tomorrow? And that's like such an important thing because we often think, like you said, in business, we often think in months or quarters or year. And it's like if you ask somebody, what are you going to do in the next, month to achieve this? It feels a bit like, like, well, I'll fit it in when I have time. But if you say, what are you going to do tomorrow? It's totally a different way to reframe it. So,
it's we have this we do a workshop, planning workshop, and we work with C-suite, we work $1 billion companies, the leaders of $1 billion companies in the room, and we say, what's your objective today? No one can answer
yeah.
it. What's your objective this week? No one can answer it. What's your objective this month? A few people can answer that. What's your objective this quarter? Most people can answer that. And
Yeah.
that's the penny drop moment, which is like, well, this is the opportunity, team. If you don't know what you need to achieve today to achieve what you need at the end of the quarter, all the effort's going to happen in the last week because
Yeah.
finally,
Yeah.
finally,
That's how it
the
goes.
time starts to make sense. But if you start to
Yeah.
break that down, what's going to happen is 6 to 9 weeks into that quarter, you're going to get there,
Yeah.
and you'll surprise yourself. And we have this 90-day program, and companies are surprised that they deliver always before the end of the 90 days. Um, and then the best compliment I ever had was working with Australia's largest supermarket chain, Woolworths, in fact, largest company in Australia. And after a few years, the leaders came up to me and they're like, "I think I'm going to lose my job, Boo, because I've got nothing to do." And it's like you've arrived.
Yeah.
That's your job. You're a leader. You're not meant to do. You're meant to think. And
Yeah.
now you're making better decisions. We reduced consultancy headcount by nearly 68%. They started to do more things internally. What they had everything there. They had all the ingredients, but they just didn't have the kind of recipe and learning from cooking each dish to become a master chef of a Michelin star restaurant.
Yeah, no, that's really good. Hey, before we go into rapid fire, talking about your favorite movie, your favorite quote, and what would you go back and tell yourself 10 years ago? Let's just get this into if you were to give a tip to a company that you think super impactful, people listening right now, what would you say to them as a great starting point? Like, do this tomorrow. It's super practical. Do this tomorrow. This is what will help you move down this path. What would it be?
Turn your next meeting into a debrief. Frame it up with Orca. Don't meet. And before the meeting, have everyone define what their objective is by Friday, by the end of the week, where they're currently at, why they're there, and what's one thing they're going to do about it. That explodes people's heads. And
Yeah.
then that's going to be clunky. And what's probably going to happen, because we've seen it so many times, is everyone's going to come up to that meeting. I'm not 100% sure what my objective by Friday is. From there, the debrief gets transformed into a planning session. And we're like, right,
Yeah.
well, let's look at what we need to achieve this month. And now let's break it down into this week. Everyone's going to be overly ambitious. So then you say, cool, well, let's try and achieve it by Friday, but I'm going to give you to the following Friday to actually get it done. And what's going to happen is you're going to try really hard to get it done. You're going to find out all the problems. You're going to get really focused. And then the second week is the get done week. So I kind of tell people always operate on a 2-week kind of mission horizon, which is
Mhm.
1 week of trying and the last week of finishing. So that to me is any just invest in the whole idea of intentional reflection or debriefing. That's the key.
Yeah, I love that. And like one thing that came to mind as an example is like especially in this age of AI, like new software and things like that is being more integrated into companies now more than ever. And how many times do we like buy something and then never do it? And it's like if you use this framework, just that little tip that you gave right there, if you use that one tip on how are we going to use this software to maximize value to our customers, like you would figure it out faster and it wouldn't be 1 year later and you go, why aren't we using this like this software that we bought a year ago, right? So it was just like a quick example that hit my head.
Well, that happens all
Yeah.
the time in software development. It's oh, I need software to do this instead of saying I need software to achieve this. And I
Yeah.
find it all the time for me that it's how I select marketing agencies. It's how I select employees, because I don't ask them to do anything. I ask them to achieve something and how they're going to achieve it. And if they can't answer the question, I'm not going to hire you. Like, I,
Uh-oh, you're giving away hiring tips. You better watch out.
yeah, I'm happy to, you're going to tell me a whole bunch of stuff you're going to do and I'm going to pay you to do it. And then we're not going to achieve anything. I know that's going to happen because I've seen it 100 times. So,
Yeah.
so just reframing everything in life. This is how you survive with AI, because everyone's asking AI to do stuff for them. It's not asking AI to achieve something for them. And you have to stop and think about what you need to achieve to get the most out
Yeah.
of. It's just another form of intelligence, like a human being. But just like a human being, if it doesn't know where it's going, it's just going to give you garbage.
Yeah, no, I love that. All right, well, I appreciate you, giving us that very practical tip. So challenge to the audience, like take that and use it and see what happens. And then obviously call Boo because he'll have way more for you. All right, so rapid fire round. Favorite movie?
Empire of the Sun. Oh, I lost you there, mate. It froze. Can you hear me?
'51. Oh, okay. There you are.
Yeah, I just wanted to check that the Wi-Fi and everything is okay. Yeah, sorry, man, just froze and dropped out. I don't know which end that occurred on. But...
That's all right. We'll reframe it. I just made a note here that we froze up and
Yeah,
we'll get
I
it
lost
edited.
you after I said Empire of the Sun. I don't have anything after that.
Okay. Um Wait, you lost me after what? Sorry.
Empire. You said favorite movie. I said Empire of the Sun.
Okay, all right. Let me just restart with the rapid fire round piece.
Cool.
Okay, so let's move into rapid fire round. Favorite movie?
Empire of the Sun.
Empire of the Sun. You're gonna have to give me like an actor or like what is the plot
Christian
here?
Bale when he was about 8 years old, and it's a story about a kid that gets separated from his parents and put into a POW camp during World War II in Shanghai, and he loves aviation and aeroplanes, and it's his story of endurance as a kid, um, all the way through till the end of the war, and just how fast this kid had to grow up, and yeah, it's a powerful movie.
Okay, well, I put it down here as a note because it's funny. Over the last few years, I've went back and watched movies based on people's favorite movie,
Yeah,
and I'm always pleasantly surprised. Like, oh yeah, I really did like that. And then there's always a few where I'm like, what were they thinking?
yeah, it's
All
a good
right,
movie too because it doesn't age because it's set,
yeah, yeah,
in the 40s.
yeah. Favorite quote.
Um, Nothing's ever as good or as bad as it seems. It just is.
Okay, you know who said that, or is that an unknown quote?
That is a quote from one of my squadron commanders when I was a young pilot, when I had a bad mission and I felt bad.
Okay, say it again one more time.
Nothing's ever as good or as bad as it seems. It just is.
Okay, I kind of love that. It's kind of like it is what it is. Yeah, yeah, love that. All right, if you were to go back and tell yourself something 10 years ago, what would you tell yourself?
Um, Buy more property.
You know what? Everyone's so like philosophical when they say something, and that was so practical. I really liked that. Yeah, just buy more property. That is good. That is good. Well, Boo, how can people get a hold of you? How can they learn more about the work that you do?
Callmeboo.com is my website. Afterburner.com is the company if you want some fighter pilot rah rah. And yeah, if you just type Boucousis, BOUCOUSIS into anything, LinkedIn, Facebook, whatever, you'll find me as Boo. There's only
Okay.
me, my dad, my cousin, and my kids. We're the only Boucousis on Earth, so can't hide from the tax
Sweet.
man. Yeah.
I feel privileged to do a podcast with one of only, a handful of Boucousis.
Yeah,
So
we
that's
can thank
sweet.
the Ottoman Empire for that in World War II for annihilating all the Armenian Greeks. My
Oh,
great
well,
grandfather
okay.
managed to
Well,
escape. So
wow,
yeah,
that's incredible. What another story. I can't believe we didn't lead with this. What are we thinking? Oh my goodness. Well, Boo, again, thanks for being on the podcast and appreciate you sharing your wisdom with us.
thanks for having me, Harrison. It's always a pleasure spending time with you, mate.
Well, that wraps things up for us today. Thanks for joining us. Join us next time where we continue to learn together how to develop ourselves and the people around us. Please don't forget to share this podcast and write a review. If people don't know where to find great wisdom from people like Boo, how do you expect them to ever find it themselves? This is the great way to do it, by sharing it. So we'll see you next time on our next podcast.
Make it a great one. Just be sure to leave out the doubt. Time to